They say lightning never strikes twice. But what if it did? What if the daughter of one of the most legendary tech geniuses on Earth decided to carve her own path? Not with gadgets or code, but with horses, runways, and a whole lot of grit. This is the untold story of Eve Jobs, the youngest daughter of Steve Jobs, and how she turned the impossible legacy of the Apple founder into a life entirely her own. Let's get into it. Most people think being the child of a billionaire is like living on easy mode. Private jets, designer clothes, perfect Instagram life. But here's the twist. Being the daughter of Steve Jobs isn't as glamorous as it sounds. Because imagine this, your dad is literally Steve Jobs. The man who changed how the world listens to music, uses phones, even how we think about design. And you're his youngest kid, born into the legacy of the iPhone, the Mac, the iPod. No pressure, right? Eve Jobs was born on July 9, 1998, in California. Her mom, Laureen Powell Jobs, is one of the most respected philanthropists and businesswomen on the planet. Her dad, well, you already know, Apple, Pixar, innovation legend. But little Eve wasn't trying to invent the next iPhone. She was trying to ride horses. Yep. While other billionaire kids were learning piano or taking yacht selfies, Eve was out in the dirt, literally, training to become one of the best equestrians in the world. So where did it all begin? From the outside, the Jobs family lived a quiet, low-key life in Palo Alto. Steve Jobs, surprisingly, didn't raise his kids like celebrities. He famously limited their screen time. No iPads, no iPhones at the dinner table. He wanted them to build things, not scroll through them. Eve's childhood was all about simplicity and discipline, but she wasn't your average kid. According to Walter Isaacson's biography of Steve Jobs, Eve was a pistol, strong-willed, feisty, the kind of kid who didn't take no for an answer. Steve used to joke that when she got older, she'd probably run Apple or terrorize whoever did. And honestly, he wasn't wrong about the ambition part. By the time Eve was 6 years old, she was already riding horses. At first, it was just a hobby, but soon it turned into an obsession. She'd spend hours in training, learning how to balance, how to control, how to connect with the animal. It wasn't just sport. It was discipline, focus, and a little bit of rebellion against her father's world of tech and design. Horses became her universe. By her teens, Eve wasn't just pretty good. She was incredible. She started competing professionally, representing the US in major show jumping competitions across the world. By 2019, she was ranked 5th among the top riders under 25. That's not just good, that's elite level. Think about that for a second. The daughter of one of the most famous entrepreneurs ever, instead of sitting on boards or managing investments, was out there sweating, training, and competing. That's a power move. Now here's where the story gets interesting. Because while Eve was busy dominating equestrian competitions, the rest of the world was quietly obsessed with the question, what will the Jobs kids do after Steve Jobs? After Steve passed away in 2011, the media started speculating like crazy. Would one of his kids take over Apple? Would they inherit his billions? Would they become the next tech icons? But Eve, she didn't say much. No press tours, no flashy statements, no public appearances. Instead, she kept doing her thing. Competing, studying, staying out of the spotlight. Then, in 2020, something unexpected happened. Eve Jobs, the equestrian athlete, stepped into the fashion world. Out of nowhere, she made her modeling debut in a Glossier holiday campaign, posing alongside Sydney Sweeney and Naomi Smalls. It was playful, stylish, and effortless. People went crazy. The internet basically said, wait, Steve Jobs' daughter is a model now? And that's when Eve Jobs went from Steve Jobs' daughter to Eve Jobs, the model. She later signed with DNA Model Management, one of the biggest modeling agencies in the world. She walked the runway for Coperni at Paris Fashion Week, one of the most talked about shows of that year, and appeared in Vogue Japan and other top magazines. That's when people realized this wasn't some rich kid's side hobby. She was actually good at it. But of course, the internet being the internet, people had opinions. Some said she only got gigs because of her last name. Others argued she had every right to use her platform however she wanted. And here's where Eve's story takes an interesting turn, because instead of trying to live up to her father's legacy, she's building her own. While Steve Jobs changed technology, Eve is changing expectations of what it means to be born into fame and fortune. She's proving that your family name might open a door, but you still have to walk through it yourself. And she's doing that in her own quiet, confident way. Now, every story needs a challenge. And for Eve, that challenge is identity. Imagine being the daughter of a man whose name literally changed the world. Every move you make, people compare you to him. Every achievement you have, someone says, yeah, but her dad was Steve Jobs. That's not just pressure, that's a shadow. And it's something Eve's had to navigate her whole life. Even her mom, Lorene Powell Jobs, once said she's careful about how her kids handle wealth and privilege. Lorene's worth over $13 billion, but she's been vocal about not passing down massive inheritances. Instead, she wants her kids to work, to contribute, to create something meaningful. So, for Eve, her success, whether on horseback or on a runway, isn't about money. It's about independence. It's about saying, I can do this on my own. And let's not forget, Eve isn't just a model or equestrian. She's also quietly smart about her image and business. She doesn't post every detail of her life online. Her Instagram? Carefully curated. Polished but never too polished. She keeps mystery alive, something her dad was an absolute master of. And just when you think her story can't get any more fascinating, it does. Because in 2022, Eve started dating Harry Charles, a British Olympic equestrian. Yep, she met someone who actually understands the pressure, the discipline, the grind of the sport. They kept things private until 2024, when Harry won a gold medal at the Olympics and fans noticed Eve cheering him on. A few months later, the two got married in July 2025 in the Cotswolds, England, a stunning countryside ceremony attended by family, friends, and even big names like Kamala Harris. Elton John performed. Yeah, that Elton John. It wasn't just a celebrity wedding, it was a moment of full circle. The girl who grew up in her father's shadow had finally stepped fully into her own light. So what's Eve Jobs doing today? At 27, she's balancing two careers, one in equestrian sports and another in high fashion. She's also involved in philanthropy through her family's foundation, focusing on environmental issues and education. But she's not out there chasing headlines or building tech empires. She's building something different, a life on her own terms. And maybe that's the biggest lesson from the Jobs family we don't talk about enough. Steve Jobs changed the world with innovation. Eve Jobs is changing it quietly, with individuality. Because not everyone needs to be a tech genius. Some people just need to be true to who they are, even if the world expects them to be someone else. And that brings us to the bigger picture. The challenge Eve faced isn't just hers. It's the challenge of anyone living under someone else's shadow. A parent, a sibling, a legacy. The world loves to tell you who you should be. But the hardest and bravest thing you can do is say, no, this is who I am. Eve Jobs didn't follow her father's footsteps. She built a completely different path. And that's what makes her story so powerful. Because maybe the real apple she inherited isn't a company. It's the seed of courage to think different. Before you go, if you found this story inspiring, subscribe to our channel. Thanks for watching.